the two most beautiful words in the world of comedy, Richard Pryor.
Good evening. Wait for the people to get from the bathroom. People in there pissing on. Wait, the shit done started.
Richard Pryor, undisputed champion of the world, greatest of all times. Case closed, period, exclamation point.
But this is the fun part for me, when the white people come back after intermission and find out niggas done stole their seats.
We were sitting here, weren't we?
Yes, we were sitting right there.
Well, you ain't sitting here now, motherfucker.
It was just amazing to see him live. It's like saying that you saw Coltrane play.
What you taking my picture for? You know you ain't got no film in the camera. You just flashing, ain't nothing flashing. Sit your ugly ass down.
Most of us saw Richard and thought, he's free flying. I want to free fly.
I love when white dudes get mad and cuss, right? Because y'all some funny motherfuckers when you cuss. Right, they be saying shit like, yeah, come on, peckerhead. Come on, you fucking jerk off. Come on. Yeah, you fucking ain't right, buddy. Niggas be talking about, buddy this.
Always talked about making them brave enough to see themselves. And the demons that he wanted to exercise in the audience became demons that he found hard to exercise in himself.
Richard Pryor, the comedian and writer, was badly burned in an accident at his home in California last night.
Authorities say Richard Pryor either walked or ran nearly a mile and a half from his house to this location where an ambulance rescued him.
There was an indication that a butane lighter exploded on Mr. Pryor. What can you tell us about that?
Right now, I'm not going to say anything as cause or determination until we know for sure.
Is there any indication that there might have been some manufacturing of drugs on the premises?
I can't say that either at this time.
Pryor's attorney talked with reporters and disputed the LAPD theory that Pryor was using freebase cocaine.
He had a glass of rum in his hand. He was lighting a cigarette when boom.
No cocaine.
No cocaine.
If anyone is monitoring the intercom, let me inform you that we have the right to check the premises for flammables. And we intend to make entry by force if necessary. We have a verbal search warrant.
Fire and police investigators obtained a search warrant and forcibly entered Pryor's home to look for clues this morning. But police said someone had already cleaned up the scene of the fire and they could find no evidence.
Everybody had this sense that something was ultimately going to happen, and it finally did. This is it. He's finally killed himself.
For the first time on television, Richard Pryor.
I'm going to tell you a few things about myself because a lot of you probably don't know me. I'm not a New Yorker. My home's in Peoria, Illinois. And I'm from an average type family, 11 kids. No mother and father, just kids.
I was roaming around Greenwich Village and I wandered into the Cafe A Go-Go. And I saw this guy do a set, and I was completely mesmerized. I thought, this guy is going to be a major star if I can get him to be able to put two sentences together without fuck, motherfucker, cunt.
The next party you go to, everybody will be dancing away, having a heck of a time. There'll be one guy in the corner by himself, checking himself out, right? Everybody else will be dancing, one guy in the corner.
Richard and I would have to go through the material, rehearsing and preparing, And it was never to make it funny. It was to make it cleaner. I went to opening night, and his first legitimate gig at the Living Room, which was a chic East Side Watt. And it was very crowded, and the maitre said, could Nipsey Russell join you? I said, sure, of course. Nipsey sat down. And all during the show, Nipsey's going, I said, what's wrong with you, Nipsey? At the end of the show, what was wrong? He says, he's doing Bill Cosby.
Bill Cosby did what they call the crossover. You know, he'd gotten white people to like him. And I think Richard thought he had to imitate Bill to get over, to become part of the circus or whatever it was.
All the success came within a year.
Yes.
How is it up here?
Oh, wow.
How does it come out?
Oh, hostile.
Really?
Oh, yes. I go out, I don't know, I go crazy.
Well, tell us the big things that are going to happen to you.
Well, the big thing that's going to happen to me, I'm going to Las Vegas.
He plays Vegas in 1966. He's a huge success. And that world that he so aspired to join, wanted to impress everybody, wanted to be a big star with his name in lights. And suddenly there's a hollowness to that prize.
Richard Pryor. I want to really tell you, it's really wow being here. My home's in Midwest Illinois, Peoria. Yeah. Peoria where? Peoria, Illinois.
When he was in Las Vegas performing, he looked out in the audience and saw some white people. Dean Martin was in the audience and he was looking at him. And Richard said, I looked at Dean Martin through his own eyes and saw me looking like a damn fool.
It was like an epiphany. I don't want to do it that way anymore. I want to do it the way I hear it. That was probably when Richard Pryor decided to become Richard Pryor.
In the middle of the night, I got a call. You better get out here because Richard Pryor has just gone nuts and he is literally hanging from the chandeliers in the lobby. I want him out of the hotel and he is finished. No, nice talking to you, you know.
It was all over town. You heard what happened last night. And I think he was fired the next day.
It was so public. You had a Vegas gig. That's what every comic wants. And you blew it?
And I guess everybody thought that, well, that's the end of Richard Pryor.
I did not hear from him. I did not know where he was. Richard was gone.
Don't try to find no logic, because a lot of this shit here is logic is omitted. And sometimes to understand Richard, you have to first omit logic. And then you come closer, because what you think it ought to be, it ain't gonna be nothing like that.
Talking to the people. Try, get them to go your way. Tell us not to
Richard, he says, we're going to start all over again. He had a new name. It was Edward or Edwin or something stupid. So I'm going to call myself. He said, I'm going to come and I'm going to pretend like I have nothing and see how I get to know these people here, the hippies. I'm going to be one of them.
He gave up everything, man. He gave up his driver's license, he gave his bank account, he gave up any kind of ID. He lived in this horrible little clapboard boarding house. He invited me to go to an after party, and we weren't apart for like 6 years.
I am a revolutionary.
There was a lot of feverish things going on. People asserting their rights, demonstrations. There was just a lot of ferment in the Bay Area.
Something different was happening with Afro-American culture. It had come into its own. And Richard showed up and gave it new life.
There used to be some beautiful black men would come through the neighborhood dressed in African shit, you know, really nice shit, you know, and they'd be, peace, love, black is beautiful. Remember the essence of life. We are people of the universe, and life is beautiful. My parents go, that nigga crazy.
No one had heard him using the N-word the way he does, and you're just starting to do that. He was tiptoeing into it. And in comedy, you just never heard anything like this.
So Richard would nudge this audience to some kind of feeling about who they really were. So he's telling a joke, and white guy in the back says, "You ought to be glad I got a sense of humor." And Richard said, "Yeah, you know, I am glad you got a sense of humor because I know what you do to us niggas."
He was acutely aware of the dynamics of political, racial segregation.
I'd hate to be white. This audience that he was playing to was as hip an audience as you could get. And they weren't sure that they were going to go along. That's how radical Richie was.
The cops always pull up. Don't kick his hands up, black boy.
I think he was very conscious of what he was doing. Richard knew how to drop atomic bomb words. He knew that words were powerful.
I mean, they accidentally shoot more niggas out here than any place in the world. Every time you pick up paper, nigga accidentally shot in the ass. How do you accidentally shoot a nigga 6 times in the chest? Well, my gun fell and just went crazy.
He was fully blown as Richie Pryor. It was astonishing. His point of view, his attack on the culture from every version, no holds barred, not thinking about a career, not thinking about what you have to do to be right and wrong.
He wasn't a civil rights leader like you would say Huey Newton or Martin Luther King, but he was somebody who inculcated the spirit of the movement.
Richard in Berkeley was, you know, a lovable person, but Berkeley's not the world. You had to meet the monster. You had to go through Hollywood.
I met Richard Pryor in 1972 at an upscale garden party in Beverly Hills. I asked him what he was doing, and he said, nothing. I said, I know, I'm doing nothing, but I mean, what are you working at? He said, I'm not working at anything. I'm unemployed. I said, how long have you been unemployed? He said, a long time. I said, really? Who's managing you? Nobody. Who's agenting you? Nobody. He didn't really have any place to go at that time, so he took a job doing punch-up lines for Red Fox. I thought, you know, this is not right. So I said to Richie, let's record an album.
Don't ever marry a white woman in California. A lot of you sisters probably don't marry white women anyway, nigga. Shit. Why should you be happy? Sisters look at you, though, like you killed your mama when you're out with a white woman, don't they? You can't laugh that shit off, either. She's not with me.
Richard said, look, I know that you like it, and I know that I like it. Black people are gonna like this. I said, Richard, I can't answer that. I don't know. He said, let's hope so. And if not, we're both out of business.
I don't know how you feel about the title of your album, but I find it difficult to say.
You do?
Yes, I do.
Most white people, it's hard to say crazy.
No, you tell them the title of the album. I can't say that.
The title of the album is That Nigga's Crazy.
See, now you can just say that and talk.
Yeah, well, look,
if I said that, would you get mad?
I'd punch you out.
While I was in my college years, we'd get together and play Richard Pryor LPs and have listening parties.
My father, when we ate, it was fun. Hey, bitch, where the food? Goddamn, mama, come on. Shit. Oh, you motherfucker, you shit. Oh, goddamn it.
Saying fuck in those days was unheard of. They had blue laws, for crying out loud.
It was just a secret. It was like learning how to say motherfucker.
bitch, kiss my ass.
But the people that had it first, I don't know why, but were pimps and hoes.
This is the only guy really touching on some shit that's like, woo, taboo to other people, like, don't go there. So he was the messiah, the messenger for the real niggas in the streets that wanted to express themselves but couldn't.
I mean, the album was a Grammy Award winner. #1 on the R&B charts in 1974 for 5 weeks, which is unheard of, a comedy album in the R&B charts.
This was a time when Richard was moving up very quickly. It was rather like being fired out of a cannon.
We hardly ever went to 2 gigs in sequence, from L.A. to Washington, back to L.A., to New York, back to L.A.
Now, you use the term nigger, right? Now, does the black community get on you for using that on a show? Now,
Sure.
how do you answer it? What do you say?
I say, nigga, get out my face.
People were fascinated with Richard, especially white people. They never heard anybody talk like that. They were fascinated that how could this young black person have this kind of power? That's power.
When he would drive down and perform, word would spread through everybody got on the phone and said Richard's at the Comedy Store.
The word got out so quickly that Richard was backstage at the Comedy Store that by the time he got on, there wasn't a comedian in town who wasn't in the audience.
I took some acid once, too. White dude gave me some. At a party, dude said, this is far out. Hey, get the fuck out of my face. About 20 minutes later, I was at the party, you know. I can't breathe. I don't remember how to breathe. I told you it was far out.
When he performed, he would sometimes make a couple notes on the back of an envelope of some of the things he might do, but he never worked out in advance it wasn't really a routine.
Every night you see something different that you hadn't seen before. He would do a riff here and a riff there, just spontaneously.
What kind of shit you handing me? Fuck is it? I don't know what you're handing me to sign. The fuck it say on there? Champagne list? I ain't signing for no goddamn champagne.
He was always doing something new. All of a sudden, oh my God, look what he's doing now.
He wasn't just telling jokes, he was telling stories. And stories that were so vivid and so funny that you had to stay with him. And you think, okay, that's amazing.
I mean, he just had that laser-like wit and brings so much tenderness to it. And do the wino on the street.
I'm gonna help you, boy, because I believe you got potential. That's right, you can be somebody, because you're shot, you know what I mean? Try some of that. Don't you drop it, nigga. Say it.
You're watching a world that, at least in my case, I would never have known, but for Richard Pryor. And what a colorful world it is that he paints.
He'd go out and he'd do 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Sometimes if the wind was right, he'd do 4 or 5 minutes. And eventually there'd be about 40 minutes of material. And when there was 40 minutes of material, he knew then he could get from there to a concert.
I discovered masturbating by accident. I'm not lying. I was about 10. I was in the tub. And that's when you used to have to hold your dick with 2 fingers. I mean, I said, hey. I'm on to something here. I bet Dad don't know about this.
He understood how to excavate the human soul on stage in front of 600 people without blinking.
First time I came, ejaculated, scared the fuck out of me, man. I thought something was wrong. Right? I was with this woman and said, look at the fuck you done did. About an hour later, though, I was back to my, can you do it again?
Like, if comedy was a woman I'm in love with, well, I know Richard Pryor just fucked the shit out of her. Like, he fucked her in every orifice of her body. Like, is there anywhere that this guy didn't fucking put his prints on it?
Richard had become big in the live concert, doing his, brand of risque humor. These large audiences were fascinated with Richard. But he had not crossed into film.
Somehow Berry Gordy tracked him down and wanted him to audition for the role of Piano Man in the film he was about to do of Billie Holiday, which was going to star Diana Ross.
Lady Sings the Blues, when Richard auditioned, they let him do improv. You can't let Richard do improv. He'll steal the show. Which he did. The rest is history.
Everybody got a room full of girls at home. You're just gonna be another one. You won't be that Billy. You got too much going.
Come on, you don't need this guy to push his shit.
I mean, he was huge in Lady Sing the Blues. That sealed it for him in terms of his performance and having the audience crave to see more of him.
Me, man. We coming, me.
That part got bigger and bigger and bigger. By the time they finished cutting that movie, Richard was co-star in that movie.
I met him in '72. He wasn't that famous, but the word was out. I said to him, why don't you meet me for breakfast, He said, breakfast, okay, I'll meet you at 4. I said, 4? I told him about a black sheriff in 1874, and he loved the idea, he just loved it. I said, I'm gonna fight for you to be the lead in Blazing Saddles. And I said, look, I'm going to write it like a gang comedy. Anybody got a good idea, it's in. We're all going to be equal. I will be a little more equal than anybody else. But we're all going to be equal, and we're all going to have fun. And I want you to be one of the writers.
He called me up and said, listen, I would like to be the star of that film, Blazing Saddles. That would be terrific. This is going to be something big.
I wrote most of the black jokes, and Richard wrote most of the Mongo jokes. He was like this big, tough baby. Richard wrote lines like, Mongo only pawn in Game of Life. He wrote these sugar wacky lines.
The next day, he showed up in my apartment with cigars and a very expensive Dunhill lighter. And I said, what's this? And he said, well, we're going to be signing a lot of contracts.
Somebody higher up at Warner Brothers had heard that Richard was doing drugs or Richard was unreliable, and I was fighting, and they said, we appreciate his contribution as a writer. We know how funny he is. It's the starring role. We won't star him in the picture. It got to the fucking board of Warner Brothers where he lost on some vote, and that was it,
He wished that he got the starring role. That was a disappointment, major disappointment.
Just put him over the edge when they said that. And he became high, so high and out of control, and so he decided to shoot up the house. We had a huge saltwater fish tank. It was like 150 gallons. I mean, it was huge. And of course, killed all the fish and buckled the floor and shot the Charlie Parker painting that was hanging above the fireplace, a huge Charlie Parker painting. He shot him in the heart.
It's really hard to live in Hollywood so controlled by white men. Very hard to do anything because they are so greedy and so insecure.
He decided he was going to fire everyone and start all over. New lawyers, new agent, new manager.
He called Ron and just said it was over. I mean, it was a pretty harsh, cold moment.
So what became of the change of heart? He said, I don't know, man, it just did. I puzzled over that for many, many years.
I don't like movies when they don't have no niggas in them. I went to see Logan's Run, right? They had a movie of the future called Logan's Run. Ain't no niggas in it. I said, well, white folks ain't planning for us to be here. That's why we gotta make movies.
David was a very powerful black manager based out of Atlanta. Very militant, very pro-black, very, very smart. Gift for making huge deals and huge money. And Hollywood loved David.
David Franklin was a pudgy, brilliant black man who stuttered. And Richard loved that. He said, man, because got stutters, he can get sympathy.
So David went on to manage Richard, be his agent, and act as his lawyer.
Other than Richard's pure talent, David was absolutely responsible for Richard becoming really big in film.
We did 9 or 10 pictures together. The first of them, the Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings, about the Negro National Leagues.
Like batting averages. See, you take the number of times a man been at bat, and you divide that by the number of times a man got a hit. Like me, I've been at bat 100 times. I got 25 hits. That's simple, right? 25 going to 104 times. Gives me a batting average of 4. That's wrong. That ain't no way to do that.
The second film was Car Wash. I wasn't going to make that movie without Richard.
Believe in the Lord. Right. And most of all, believe in that federal green.
Remember the day that David came back from a meeting with Richard driving a brand new Rolls Royce. He must have been doing something that was making Richard pretty happy for Richard to give him a brand new Rolls Royce as a gift.
Right at that moment, the notion that he could hold the lead in a picture was a totally unproven notion.
Now, here, take this radio. When you step out of here, you gotta step out of here like king shit, right? You bad. I put that radio to your ear. That's gonna help cover your face, right? And just move with the rhythm of the music. Move your body with the rhythm of the music. That's all you gotta remember, okay? Let me see you try it. Step to the music. Step to the music. Yeah. Step to the music. Stop. How come you whitey's got such a tight ass, man? Now do it. Can't you feel it? The tempo's right here.
He basically launched a new genre of comedy, the interracial buddy comedy. And this was a new kind of formula for comedy in Hollywood.
He broke the glass ceiling. He made earning a certain amount of money for black people that was not possible at that time possible.
One of the films that I did with him, called Which Way Is Up, I designed the film around his stand-up routine.
Come on, Bob, get your old ass out here.
Richard played himself, he played his father.
Yeah, fuck you. I heard that. Fuck you too, boy.
And he played a bootleg preacher.
Later, what kind of low-life dog, scoundrel, snake in the...
And I think it's the first black film that ever did multiple characters.
Richard would come and say, hey, Cecil, why don't you watch this? And I come upstairs, and he said, look. And I look out the window, and by the swimming pool would be sitting famous white people, famous producers, dying to be allowed to come up the stairs, up to the place where we were.
You ever go home? Yes, I do. I go. I'm not allowed in Peoria no more.
I didn't know that.
No, when you make some money, niggas don't want you in town, man.
He desired to be the biggest star in entertainment, as big as Cosby, as big as Portier. He also wanted to be the blackest star, you know, as black as Malcolm X.
Birdhead. Cracker.
Spear chucker.
White trash.
Jungle bunny.
Funky.
His appearances on Saturday Night Live were very instrumental in walking the very thin line between what was acceptable on television and his mind.
Nigger.
Dead hunky.
My grandmother would walk by the living room and she'd say, "You're watching that Negro again?" It was the only black person that my grandmother would allow in the house. It was Richard Pryor.
The audiences absolutely loved it. The network loved it. That's why the network went after him and said, we want you to do a television show.
We had the best time. When you have the support of someone who carries that much weight, it trickles down to everybody to be courageous and crazy.
Mr. President, Mr. President.
Yes.
Mr. President, since you've become president, you've been courting an awful lot of white women. Will this continue?
As long as I can keep it up.
I actually hired a court stenographer because the ideas were, one day he walked in a conference room, he jumped on the table and said, "Let Bojaws handle it." We don't know who Bojaws was.
Are you sick? Are you crippled? Let Bojaws
Bojas was this weird medicine man that lived in the Louisiana bayou, healing people.
Mr. Bojos, I got a bad arm. I can't move it. He got a bad arm, and he can't move it.
It was groundbreaking within the rules of how mundane television was at the time.
You know, there's a lot of things written about me. People wondering if I'm gonna have a show, if I'm not gonna have a show. Well, I'm having a show. People say, well, how can you have a show? You've got to compromise. You've got to give up everything. Is that a joke or what? Well, look at me. I'm standing here naked. I've given up absolutely nothing. So enjoy the show.
It was pretty crazy. It was wonderful. And he was always pushing the envelope. And that's when I went, wow. And that was the best thing. To start off the season, it was like, wow.
He was always between two worlds. He was between that acceptable, sort of mainstream white world and, of course, a much stronger, harder, knowing street place. But the networks were so leery of him, you know, so scared of him.
The show was supposed to air that night. NBC censored the opening. I called Richard at home. So you're not going to edit out the naked opening. It caused a shitstorm. He quit.
First thing you start off going, this is my attempt to make a statement. They don't air that, then that really sets the rules that, okay, you're not going to let me do what I'm going to do.
Richard came back, and after pleasantries, Richard said, television chews you up and spits you out, and I don't want that to happen to me. So I decided not to do the series. He went to NBC, and of course they said Richard had to do the show. They weren't going to let him off the hook.
Well, from the looks of things, I'll be seeing you next time. NBC made sure of that. I'm not going anywhere.
They kept saying, you know, you got to be more mainstream. And he was going, no, fuck you. No, we can't.
If it wasn't real, fuck it. You know what I mean? He wasn't compromising.
Rocco is a token white person on the show.
He wanted a lot of changes made. He wanted more black people involved in the production staff. He only wanted 3 whiteys to come back.
We were in a rehearsal hall one day, and a guy walks in with a African cap and a dashiki and a stick. And I said, Richard, who is that guy? He says, his name is Prophet Jennings. He's a nigger expert.
He was the one to judge whether Richard was black enough. Richard looked at him and he'd either go like this or like that.
I love American people. I want to say I had 2 for lunch.
In the end, they demanded that he do stand-up, which didn't sit well with anybody making demands on him. So they recorded 45 minutes of him doing stand-up. They had 10 seconds they could use.
A lot of people here might be offended, so you should leave now, because I'm going to say fuck and suck. And shit and doo-doo.
It's amazing that he got things on that he got on, but it's only because 90% of what he wanted to get on didn't get on, that 10% of it actually got through them because they just couldn't fight with him that much.
again.
That was it. It was like he went out swinging.
Well, good night. See you next week.
And we're delighted to have with us 2 of the very best friends I have who dropped by, Miss Pam Grier and Mr. Richard Pryor.
Richard was dating Pam Grier. You know, she was crazy about that guy.
We bumped into each other on the set of Grease Lightning, in which we were both starring in, which will be released sometime in April.
You say you bumped into each other?
Yes, we bumped.
That must have been quite a collision.
I know that Richard's grandmother wanted Richard to marry Pam. She thought she was certainly an accomplished actress. She was black, and she was a healthy girl. She wasn't a party girl.
I'll be jogging in the morning, please. Me and Rashawn, we 2 black men, we'll be jogging. We're not robbing anything.
Richard was completely sober. He played tennis every morning at 7 o'clock. It was a Richard that I had not seen.
Richard came into my office, said, I'm getting married tomorrow. I'll be late. I said, well, man, congratulations. It was fucking great. So I had a cake this big. Congratulations, Richard and Pam. My phone rings, and Pam says, you tell that son of a bitch I'm coming down, I'm gonna kill him. Richard Pryor had married a girl that he got pregnant. And he walks in, and they start moving the cake out.
He looks at the cake and realizes that there's Pam on there, and there's Richard with this other woman.
There was a prop cart, and it had plastic flowers on it. So he shoved it in the middle of the cake to blur out Pam and Richard.
A lot of people were surprised that Richard married Deborah because it did come out of nowhere.
There were many women in Richard's life. I recognized that he told me this, that they wouldn't be around that long.
This is about the time I've been married, and it's really exciting because I really am trying. I really am trying.
I'm telling you, I'm fucking trying, okay? But it's hard to wake up and see the same person all the fucking time.
Richard had, I done forgot now, 8, 9, 12 wives, I don't know. But I know that all of them was what they was to him when they was. Was, once was.
Richard had a pimp's mentality. He pretends like he's controllable. It's like a spider. You know, that's to lure you in till you get caught in the web.
Richard had a compulsion to be married because he didn't want to be alone. But once he would marry, the magic would be off. It would be gone because he won.
If he wanted you, you had that power. And usually that would just about last until he got you, and then it'd be time to go after another woman. And that was the game with Richard. Then the whole fun of the game was, how do I get this bitch out of my house?
I was the best man at a wedding with Jennifer and Hana Maui. And the next morning after the wedding, I was in my room, and about 7 o'clock in the morning, there's a knock on the door. And I go to open the door, there's Richard Pryor. I said, Richard, what are you doing here at 7 in the morning? And he says, I want a divorce.
Though I'd like to die like my father died, right? My father died fucking. He did. My father was 57 when he died, right? The woman was 18. But my father came and went at the same time.
Would you like to introduce our next guest, Richard?
Yes, who?
Your grandmother?
Oh, man, don't do that.
Mrs. Bryan, I'm told that you run a pool hall.
Yes, I do.
Did Richard spend much time in the pool hall?
Yes, he used to come down there and shoot pool and things after school,
They used to cuss in the pool room before she took over. Now the language is the guys. Why you?
I keep them in their place. See, I'm an old lady, and I stay in old lady's place, and I respect them young men, and they must respect me. Isn't that right?
That's exactly right.
I remember meeting Marie Carter. She's a grandmother that you see in books. She had the long white hair, and she was dressed very smart. I bowed to her, and this old bitch hit me in my chest so hard. Boom! And I felt the breath leave out. And before I would let her hit me again, I rushed and started choking her. And she started laughing at me. She laughed like it was the funniest shit she had seen. And Richard stood to the left and he said, "That's my grandmother, man."
I was born Richard Franklin Lennox Thomas Pryor III. I got names from pimps and gangsters. Grew up seeing my mother go in the rooms with men, and my aunties go in the room with men. And I remember tricks used to come through our neighborhood. That's where I first met white people. They come down through our neighborhood to help the economy. Man, but I met nice white men just coming. Hello, little boys. Your mother home? I'd like a blowjob.
When he told us about it, we laughed at it. Get the fuck out of here. Your mother's so thick. God, we didn't really grasp it. And when you realize it really happened, it wasn't jokes. It makes us, it's like if you didn't have that experience, go, what is that like? How do you maintain love?
His uncle and his daddy was pimps. I'm talking about not no play pimps, real pimps. Them guys would pimp a Barbie doll. Bitch, go out and get the money.
The grandmother was the madam-in-chief of the whole operation. Basically, keep the girls in line, keep the Johns in line.
That's when I realized who she was in terms of this is the whole house. She runs everything.
You know, she lived on the south side in Peoria, and she could sleep with the door unlocked. People knew, you're not coming up in this house. You know, if you do come up in the house, you know what's gonna happen.
The grandmother was the matriarch of the family upon whom everybody else's survival depended. She was Richard's nurturer, the punisher, the disciplinarian, everything rolled into one.
My grandmother wake my ass up, you know. Get your ass out. Put your hand up. Don't you run from me. Don't you run from me.
You were 15 years old when your first child was born?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
How could you, I mean...
It was fun.
And then after she was born?
I didn't know my father was making love to her, too. And I was standing in the dining room, I was crying. My mother said, what's wrong with the boy, Bucky? My mother said, there ain't nothing wrong with him, got some girl pregnant.
I think when you grow up around a bordello, you see people at their very core in a way. You know, it's like there's no facade, there's no masks on.
I don't know what it was that made me that way. They could laugh at anything. Nothing was too sad. Some humor could not be found in it.
His sensitivity made him so brilliant as a comedian, but some things were so painful that he wanted to be somewhere else.
I think if you are a sensitive type, that that you self-medicate. It's easier to self-medicate.
I snorted cocaine for about 15 years. I must have snorted up Peru.
You do a line, drink some Cavasse. That's lunch. You know, have some lunch, let's get high, go back to work.
Watching Dad doing drugs, you know, snorting some lines or smoking, you know, those are things that you didn't really question.
Listen, I was doing so much, I embarrassed cocaine dealers. They would say, Richard, man, goddamn.
Well, how much you want? A kilo. Just for the weekend.
A lot of people came to the house to play cards, hang out. For the drugs, of course, because he bought coke by the key. Lowlifes, drug dealers, card people, hookers.
I don't like cocaine. I love it. And that's why I have to stay away from it. And I enjoyed it for a long time. And then you want to change your whole life. And you swear you'll never, tomorrow I won't never do this again.
Success doesn't change you. It only magnifies who you've been all your life. And success magnified the kid from Peoria with Richard. But now he had endless money, endless fame.
When he would betray himself, which he did with some frequency, he thought that that betrayal belonged to everyone else.
If he was in a particularly good mood and he was being nice to everybody and he could charm anyone on the set, and then he would go home that night and stew and say, you know, what kind of Tom am I? I'm everybody's black pal. And the next day he would be mean.
Richard was about 13 different personalities. 9 of them you could deal with, but them other 4 could be a motherfucker now.
Richard was very intense about his personal pride, and he didn't care where it took him.
There was a huge benefit for gay pride at the Hollywood Bowl. A lot of performers were at the Hollywood Bowl to lend their support, Richard being one of them.
Richie came on, and the audience was waiting for him. Great applause, and he said, you know, I've sucked some cock myself. That was the first thing that he said.
I thought, uh-oh, here we go. But the audience, of course, cheered. And then he went on to just really go a little nuts.
We got human rights. This is for human rights. I thought this would be some human beings here. Yeah, kiss my ass. Fuck you. And I just wanted to see where you was really at. And I wanted to test you to your motherfucking soul.
They went into shock because it was the truth. And the truth defends itself. And it was quiet. It was quiet. You could hear a rat pissing on cotton in Georgia. I mean, it was real quiet.
And when the niggas was burning down what you motherfuckers was doing what you want to do on Hollywood Boulevard, didn't give a shit about it. And kiss my happy, rich, black ass.
You all can just kiss my rich black ass. And walked off. So.
Center stage. Hello, everybody. I'm terribly embarrassed, and I don't know what to say about what just happened. But I do think... May I please finish talking?
They stood up, booing, hissing, throwing some chairs. It was the scariest event that I've ever been at. Everyone in show business was there. And I thought, we're never going to hear from him again.
I got a call from David Franklin, and he said, Cecil, because he stuttered. He said, Richard fucked up last night. So I drove over to Richard's house. Nobody was in the house. I went out, and he was sitting by the swimming pool. He was smoking a cigarette, and he had a scotch and an orange juice and vodka, which he drank. And I said, man, what happened? He said, man, fuck it, man. He said, I just told him to kiss my ass. I said, man, but why? He said, if that's the way they want me, I don't have a career any damn way.
It wasn't Hollywood that beat him in any way. He defeated himself with what his bad habits were.
Pryor went to court because of an incident at his home on New Year's Day. He's been charged with 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon and 1 count of felony malicious mischief.
I don't want to never see no more police in my life. At my house, taking my ass to jail for killing my car. I shot the motor fell out the motherfucker, right? The motor say, fuck it. Then the police came. I went into the house. Because they got magnums too. And they don't kill cars. They kill niggas.
You know, Richard Pryor was always in the news. Richard Pryor shoots his car. Richard Pryor has a heart attack. He ran into these tragedies one after another. But you also knew that 3 months will go by, or 6 months will go by, a year will go by, and then he was going to bring this experience back to you.
Anyone here ever had a heart attack? Them motherfuckers hype. I'm not bullshit, man. I was walking in the front yard. I was just walking along and someone said, don't breathe. I said, So you heard me, motherfucker. I said, don't breathe. Okay, I won't breathe. Then shut the fuck up then. Okay. I said, don't kill me. Get on one knee and prove it. I'm on one knee. Don't kill me. Think about dying now, ain't you? Yeah, I'm thinking about dying. You didn't think about it when you was eating all that pork.
When we was on the road and see Marie Carter every day while she was dying, you know, we'd do the shows, go check on his grandmother. You know, she said, you watch out for my boy.
She was dying, and basically they said, you have to get here now. So we rushed there. We went into her hospital room. I remembered she touched his camel hair coat and said, "That's blue azure. Is it warm enough?" And he said, "Yes, Mom, it's warm enough." We went back to the hotel, and she died a few hours later.
My grandmother Marita used to say, "They can kill you, but they can't eat you." I love you, grandmother, wherever you are.
She was his conduit to reality, to the world, to everything that tethered him to Earth. And I really think that that's when he started to come apart.
Dr. Al Cannon came and told Richard, and he said, when you finish going through this, go to Africa. You need to find out something about yourself.
Stand up, let's get it right. Stand up, let's keep it tight.
I went home to the motherland. I was gonna find my roots, right? 700 million black people. Not one of them motherfuckers knew me. I looked in every phone book in Africa. I didn't find one goddamn Pryor.
What he saw was black people who were walking around. Everybody was professional. Everybody had their own lives and purpose. And he felt really at home on that land.
I was sitting in a hotel, and a voice said to me, said, "Look around." I said, "Do you see any niggas?" I said, "No." You know why? Because there aren't any. And it made me say, oh my God, I've been wrong. I mean, I said, I ain't gonna never call another black man a nigga.
He really had this epiphany that he was never gonna use the word again.
When he came back, he said, I'm not gonna use that no more. And he stuck with it.
When he went to Africa, the word had no meaning. But on the streets of Detroit, there might be something else.
He tell the same joke. Just take nigga out. Oh, he's not funny no more. So the punchline was nigga for y'all. And that bothered him that, you know, some people just wouldn't elevate.
He was at such a point of a growth spurt, and he didn't want the job. You know, I'm a fucking artist. I do what I do, leave me the fuck alone. And shortly thereafter, freebase was introduced.
At the time, everybody was doing cocaine. We were snorting cocaine. A lot changed when everybody switched from snorting cocaine to freebasing cocaine. Somehow everybody knew that this was a really bad thing. It turned dark.
And he found freebase. And after 2 weeks of watching him really get addicted to this stuff, I moved out because it was clear the drug had moved in and it had become his lover, his everything. And I didn't exist anymore.
Richard wasn't an addict. He was a flat-out, full-blown junkie. I mean, he might be clean for 4 days, but be drinking booze, be clean for a week, but just snorting a little coke. So he was not honest with himself.
June 9th, 1980. Richard had walked off the set of Stir Crazy a few days earlier. The freebase had been escalating. He was not able to stop.
Richard was so coked out that he began withdrawing large sums of money out of the bank. And I'm talking like 500,000, 100,000, another 250,000, and he was hiding it in his house.
Rashawn had called. He was calling and recruiting several people that he felt were close enough to Richard to come to the house to rescue Richard, to try and get Richard to stop. Richard was in a very scary place Richard didn't just have a couple of ounces of cocaine. I'm talking about a mound of cocaine on his bed, on the bed. And he had the pipe and the torch, and he wasn't gonna put it down. You could see that he was absolutely manic.
When I saw him, I didn't know him anymore. It looked like something had been taken from him. You know, some spirit had been ripped out of him.
He was high. We were watching the Vietnam special where they were showing the monks protest to the war. And this particular monk took gasoline and poured on himself, and he lit it. I said to Richard, look at this man's commitment. And Richard looked at me, he said, fuck his commitment. He didn't even flinch. You laughed. And I went up to go to the kitchen. On my way back to the room, ball of fire is running towards me. And I just jumped out of the way. And I seen it run past me, and I got up against the wall. It run down this long hallway and outside, and then I see it outside running. Ball of fire. In Rich's room before I leave, there was a fifth of 151 rum. 3/4 of the bottle was gone.
I got a call saying that Richard was in an ambulance on the way to the Grossman Burn Center. I called Dr. Grossman, who I knew. I said, this guy is my friend. Make sure he lives.
Now, this is my impression of a heart talking to a brain. Brain. What do you want? You've been naughty. Go to hell. Don't make me angry, brain. Drop dead.
The police had just brought in a burn victim who'd been running down the street. And he was awake. Had burns of his face, neck, chest, abdomen, back, and arms. That was like 35–40% of his body burnt.
Dr. Grossman told me that based on the severe extent of those burns, there was almost no chance he would live.
I flew back to Los Angeles and went to the Sherman Oaks Burn Center, where everyone else was having a vigil about Richard.
The word kept coming out. Everybody kept saying that Richard had died.
When he got burnt, all of them showed up at the hospital. And I had to turn to a security guard, because them bitches was about to kill people if you didn't let him go to the burn center.
I told the doctors, he's on Courvoisier, he's on vodka, he's on cocaine, because I knew you give him morphine, you could overdose him.
On my desk at the studio, I had a phone that Mr. Wasserman, the chairman of the company, used to call me, and nobody else used that phone. It rang about 10 o'clock one morning. And I said hello, and I heard a voice say, "Ta." And I said, who's this? "Ta." And I realized it's Richard. And he said, am I gonna die? And I said, no, Richard, you're not gonna die. And then he hung up. And I called Dr. Grossman and said, there's a fucking phone in Richard's room next to his bed. And he said, what?
Comedian Richard Pryor, critically burned Monday night, was sitting up in his hospital bed today and eating cream of wheat and talking to his doctors. They said his chance of recovery was still only about 1 in 3, but they were more optimistic than they were yesterday.
All day long I've been hearing that he's improving. Is there still a chance he would die?
I want you to understand that you have a man who still has a 50% burn on third-degree nature, is very, very sick. And that until all of that burn tissue is taken off of his body and covered with grafts, which will require a number of operations, he's going to be that sick.
A burn, you know, you got to let it form a scab first before, and then you got to brush that off. Oh, he was crying like a baby, rightly so. And when that guy hit that brush and did all this here, I could see not the pain at that time, but the pain in his life that come back. Because he started talking. Mama, I didn't mean to do it. Mama, I didn't want to do it.
Everybody had said it was freebase, it was an accident. He said, no, I did it on purpose. I poured the rum on myself and lit myself up on fire. Now, keep in mind, he was high. So whether it was an unconscious suicide attempt or a conscious suicide attempt, who knows? But he definitely deliberately set himself on fire.
I just think he was in a pain at that moment. And like this monk, committed. But to what? He don't know.
You know, junkies are just dumb. They do dumb shit. They set themselves on fire. But then I'm sure he went, what's that smell? Hey, I think that's me. And that's what he basically says he did.
It's almost like jumping off a building. And then you lived. And you fucked up, but you lived.
I tried to commit suicide. Intentionally? That's all I want to say. Next question.
It didn't work.
Yes, it did.
You killed the old Richard Pryor?
Yeah, that person's dead. It's a horrible man. A executive from one of the studios called me and asked me to go see him because he needed help. So I flew over to Hanamaui, and he came out to greet me. And I could see the burns all over him, and I was kind of taken aback. And I remember he looked down, he said, "Don't worry, my junk is okay. I still got my junk." I said, "Okay," and I shook his hand, and we started talking. And I learned that he was dead broke, owed money to the IRS, and he thought his career was over.
What we discovered was there were a lot of inconsistencies, financial inconsistencies.
Richard suspected that David Franklin and his lawyers were cheating him.
People came in and they uncovered a lot of these business dealings that were crooked. Richard sued David Franklin and got $1 million back, but the most important thing to Richard was getting David to apologize to him. That was more important to Richard than the $1 million.
I had to figure out where he was financially, and he owed a lot of money to a lot of people. And I came up with an idea for him to do a concert movie.
He was really needing to heal. And the lawyer said to him, "You got to get back on that horse now. It's your time. If you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. They're going to forget you. They're going to forget you." The worst thing Richard could have done was come back.
He wanted to go back to work. You got to understand something. You don't make Richard Pryor do anything. Richard Pryor has to want to do whatever he's doing.
I'm gonna see Richard Pryor!
Tell him he better be funny. Tell Richard he better be funny.
The who's who of Hollywood they filled the theater up at the Palladium. Then Richie got on stage, and it was the worst show I'd ever seen him do.
Where was I? I was here. What's the date? Woke up, this camera's looking at me. I thank you, brother. I needed to hear that.
He started doing his act backwards, and he got confused.
It was rough, and you just knew it wasn't gonna be okay.
That, my guess the Lord doesn't want me to smoke it. Burn it up. It's a tough group.
Richard didn't feel it was a perfect fit. Some people in the audience didn't think it was.
Let me say this to you, this is honest. This shit didn't work for me. I mean, and I know y'all laugh and stuff, and I feel, I wanted it to be something else that it's not. It's just not there. It's just not there right at this moment in time and space for me. And I hope that nobody feels cheated or nothing, because at least you're getting to see a motherfucker crucify himself for it.
He's supposed to do about 90 minutes. He did about an hour and walked out. I thought there was gonna be a riot. He disappeared. Of course I was concerned, but I also know Richard. And I knew how resilient he was. And I knew that he'd come back.
The next day, same show, same place.
He was so upset when they told all the people that I'm going to do it all over for you again because I messed the first one up.
He was going back on stage again. Will he be accepted or rejected? Embraced or pushed aside? Another something within him that said, go forward.
The show was flawless.
All my friends know this to be true, because everybody knows me. Like, usually, before I go to bed, I have milk and cookies. And one night, I had some low-fat milk and some pasteurized, and I mixed them together, and I dipped my cookie in, and the shit blew up.
Audience went nuts. I think the laughter was at least 15 minutes.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, man. When that fire hits your ass, that will sober your ass up quick. I mean, I was standing there on fire and something said, "Why, that's so pretty blue." You know what? That looks like fire! And you know something I found out? When you're on fire and running down the street, people will get out of your way. Except for one old drunk, right? He's going, "Hey, buddy, can I get a light?"
His latest performance, live on the Sunset Strip, it has run away with the top box office spot, made $8 million in 3 days. Would you welcome Richard Pryor?
Pryor's firm, headed by longtime friend Jim Brown, entered into a $40 million 5-year deal with Columbia Pictures.
Richard wanted very badly to elevate the status of African Americans.
Indigo was going to be the first time that a black person had a $40 million deal with a major studio. And so we were going to do films, we were going to, do this, we were going to do that, we were going to change the industry. This was going to be it.
The phone rang, and he said, "Rocco, it's Richard. What are you doing?" I said, "I'm about to go to the bathroom." He said, "Well, after you take a shit, come over to Columbia."
Richard Pryor is getting ready to prepare for his role in JoJo Dancer. It's a movie written by himself, based loosely upon incidents from his own life.
He was an actor and a producer and a director, so Richard became a role model.
He hired Jim Brown to run the company for him. I think he made a decision to have somebody tough, but not somebody who really knew the film business side of it.
I brought him the Prince movie, Purple Rain, and he said, "Great." And then Jim Brown didn't want to do the movie because there wasn't an all-black crew.
They kind of let a lot of mistakes happen. I think that was part of the reason why that company didn't take off. It was a huge disappointment for black filmmakers.
He really wanted to be who he was. He wanted to be an artist. And it was too much pressure.
Richard began this tragic role where whites came in and just gave him white scripts. And that's what did him in.
I think he appeared in a movie where he was this kid's toy. His career, as far as we were concerned, went downhill.
I'm doing a film called Moving for Warner Brothers.
What's it about?
About 2 hours too long.
Eddie wrote, produced, was directing Harlem Nights, but Richard thought he should have first credit, not Eddie. And Eddie was a much bigger star at that time than Richard.
It was finished then. The whole thing had been untethered so long and it never got back.
We went to the Comedy Store. Richard wasn't there. So I looked at everybody and said, "Where's Richard?" I ran upstairs, and this comedian had Richard against the wall with a cocaine spoon, holding it to Richard's nose. I went fucking berserk. And I put him up against the wall, and his feet were off the floor. And I'm choking him and yelling at Richard. The fuck is wrong with you?
I went to see him, and he was back on drugs, and I could see he was high. And I said, Richard, this doesn't work for me. I'm not gonna stand by like everybody did with John Belushi, let you do drugs. So I said, you and I are done unless you go into rehab. And then he sent me a letter firing me and accusing me of this and this and saying I hadn't done this and I had done that, all of which was a bunch of nonsense. And he was going back to a dark place that he couldn't, I didn't think would come back from.
He kind of tried drying out for a while, and he said he was too afraid to go on stage. He was too vulnerable. He was really raw.
It looked like, unlike the fire, this time he gave up. And you just watched him begin to deteriorate in front of you.
I felt really bad that he was going down to where I basically tried to help take him out of. I mean, I wanted him to have a good life. I felt bad for him, not for me.
I think it was very self-destructive on Richard's part. I think that was a real meaningful relationship. A relationship of substance, I should say, that had real connection and real affection. And somebody really was watching out for him. There weren't a lot of those people.
And sometimes your best isn't good enough. And you can't save them from themselves.
I remember I hadn't seen him for a while. And I went to some premiere of something, and he walked up on me, and he had lost so much weight that I really didn't recognize him. And then it hit me. I said, my God, this is Richard.
I lost 20 pounds to do a film, and it kept losing it. I couldn't get it back, you know? I got real scared, Johnny.
Yeah?
You know, because I was losing weight and my pants were falling down. And I said, something's wrong, you know? I said, hey, all these diseases around, Richard, finally it's caught up with you, and you have one of them, and you're gonna die. So I was very calm about it, you know, but I'm gonna die.
A few months ago, I was on Tonight Show, right? And I was talking to Johnny Carson. And then the next day, this lady from the newspaper called one of my ex-wives and said, what do you think's wrong with Richard? She said, I think he has AIDS. Guaranteeing that I will not get no pussy to the year 2025.
One day he called. I said, what's the matter?
So I got something wrong with my eyes. I can't see straight. I said, okay, come on over to the hospital, and I'll get my ophthalmologist. They looked at him, talked to the intensivist, talked to the neurologist, and both of them said, he may have MS.
When we was doing Harlem Nights, I remember saying to Richie, he was getting ready to go do a scene, he had a big light in his hand. And I said to him, this is a period piece, man. You know, they didn't have Bics back then. He said he'd keep a light in his hand to disguise his fist balling up and what was going on with him. I mean, and that's when he let me know he had the MS.
Yeah, back in those days, we never thought that it would turn out like that.
People that have it know what I mean. The shit fuck with your nervous system. When the doctor tells you got it, and then you go, oh, I got it? What is it? I never heard a doctor say, before.
It's a blessing, though. When you can't walk, and then you have to depend on others to help you. You have to learn to trust them, which is very hard for me. Very hard.
Jennifer came out to handle his affairs when he was unable with the MS to do that much for himself.
I came back in '94. The party was over. No more piles of cocaine. That craziness was all gone. Let's put it behind us and make some lemonade out of the lemons.
The drug part of it was over. He was clean from that point on. He had really learned whatever it was to be learned from the MS.
It was difficult to visit Richard when he was sick after knowing him as such a wiry, vital, athletic type, you know, moving around and never being, you know, to all of a sudden seeing him in a wheelchair.
My dick is dead. No, it died in my hand. I had it in my hand, beat it, and the dick looked at me like I was crazy. What the fuck's wrong with you? I said, not me, it's you, motherfucker.
Even when he got sick, I mean, you know, him wanting to be on stage in his declining years was, to me, so heroic.
Warren Beatty's limousine would show up. Whew, almost make me cry thinking about it. And he would be sitting there looking out at Richard, and there was, he'd be crying because he knew what a great genius Richard was.
Richard Pryor defined the game of stand-up comedy and comedy itself. And if you haven't stole from Richard, then you're probably not that funny. And I wanted to tell him that I wanted to be just like him, except for the drug habit and the failed marriages and the temper and the guns.
As much as people felt bad for him, that man probably had some nights and some days. I mean, it'd take a lifetime to top that motherfucker's week.
The last time I saw him when he was wheelchair-bound and unable to speak, Jennifer took me to see him. He couldn't talk. All I could do is, you know, say, give him a kiss and tell him I still loved you, Richard.
Richard Pryor died this afternoon of a heart attack at his home in California. He was 65.
So, what I'm saying, what the point I'm trying to make is that there is no point to be made. That's all it is. There ain't no point to it. Because you didn't ask to come to this motherfucker, and you sure can't choose how to leave. Because you don't know when you're going to go. Don't take this shit serious. You better have some fun and plenty of it. Because when the shit over and you ask for a recharge, it's too late. So all I can say is keep some sunshine on your face.
Even till the end, Richard never did know how good he was. Most people did not understand that. I never heard him say, I knocked him off his ass tonight. He always said, I'll get him tomorrow.
As the song says, we get back up again because of boundless mercy. And that you are a champion, Richard. You are a champion. And the ground is no place for a champion. So we rise, get up, go back and do your work. They were always ready for Richard. He was always there for them. Richard belongs to us.
What do you want to be remembered for?
I like for people to see my picture and laugh.
Just see your picture.
Yeah, and laugh, and have stories and tell some lies on me. Yeah, he made me laugh. So I was there, you know. I was there Wednesday when he drove up in the, you know, whatever. Like that. Like to bring joy. That's how I like to be remembered.
Life's a game of give and take to prevent the sure heartache. Life's a game of give and take in love. Oh, life's a game of give and take to prevent the sure heartache. Life's a game of give and take in love. I will return, for fallen warriors will rise, baby. I can't understand it. Why am I to blame? Nothing like show business. See you on Broadway. See me on my way. Oh, tell me what it is made you want to change your mind. Did you say it's your fortune you want to find? Very special. Oh, life's a game of give and take. Very special. Show heartache. Life's a game of give and take in love. Oh, life's a game of give and take. It's a special heartache. Yesterday you said you still